Most people ask, is fish healthy? But that's actually too broad a question for this particular conversation, because not all fish offer the same specific benefits, and the brain-related effects we're discussing today come down to a very particular set of compounds that salmon happens to provide in unusually concentrated amounts. The better question is, what specific compounds does salmon provide, and what do those compounds actually do inside a brain that is 50 years old or older? Because your brain after 50 has specific, well-documented needs that shift somewhat compared to earlier decades, and salmon intersects with several of those needs in ways that make it a genuinely relevant food for this particular stage of life, rather than simply one more generically healthy option among many. Here is why brain health becomes such a relevant topic after 50 specifically. Natural age-related changes begin affecting the brain gradually starting around this decade for many people, including a modest decline in processing speed, occasional word-finding difficulty, and changes in how efficiently new memories are formed and retrieved. Additionally, the brain's susceptibility to inflammation, a process increasingly understood to play a meaningful role in age-related cognitive decline, tends to increase somewhat with age, and the specific fats that make up a significant portion of your brain's actual physical structure, since your brain is remarkably fat-dense compared to other organs, need to be adequately replenished and maintained throughout life, a need that becomes more relevant to actively support once your body's own internal production and maintenance of these specific fats becomes somewhat less efficient with age. Think of your brain like a well-maintained wooden ship that has been sailing for decades. The wood itself needs regular treatment and maintenance to remain strong, flexible, and resistant to the wear of constant use. And certain specific treatments work considerably better than others at maintaining that particular wood's integrity over time. Salmon functions somewhat like a specific, well-matched treatment for your brain's particular structural needs, not because it's a magical cure, but because it happens to supply the exact type of material your brain's own structure is built from and depends on to function well, material your body doesn't produce efficiently on its own and therefore needs to obtain consistently through diet. Let's start with the first thing that happens inside your brain when you eat salmon regularly, and it involves a specific type of fat called omega-3 fatty acids, particularly two forms known as DHA and EPA, both found in unusually high concentrations in fatty fish like salmon compared to most other common foods. DHA specifically makes up a significant portion of the fatty material within your brain's cell membranes, meaning it's not simply a nutrient that supports brain function from a distance, but rather a literal structural component of your brain's physical architecture. Your brain's cell membranes need to maintain a certain degree of flexibility and fluidity to function properly, allowing efficient communication between brain cells, and DHA plays a central role in maintaining that flexibility. When DHA intake is inadequate over time, brain cell membranes can become somewhat less flexible, potentially affecting how efficiently signals travel between brain cells. Regular salmon consumption provides a direct, concentrated source of DHA, helping to maintain and replenish this crucial structural component of your brain's cell membranes on an ongoing basis. The second thing that happens involves inflammation specifically, an area of growing scientific interest in understanding age-related cognitive decline. Chronic, low-grade inflammation throughout the body, including within the brain itself, has been increasingly linked to accelerated cognitive aging and increased risk for conditions like dementia. Omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA, have well-documented anti-inflammatory properties, helping to moderate the body's inflammatory response through several distinct biological pathways. Regular salmon consumption, providing a consistent source of these anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats, may help counter some of the low-grade inflammatory processes that tend to increase with age, potentially offering a protective effect against the inflammatory contribution to cognitive decline specifically. This doesn't mean salmon eliminates inflammation entirely or prevents all age-related cognitive changes, but it represents one meaningful, well-supported piece of a broader anti-inflammatory dietary pattern relevant to long-term brain health. The third thing that happens involves blood flow to the brain, an area directly connected to cardiovascular health more broadly. Omega-3 fatty acids support healthy blood vessel function, including modest improvements in blood vessel flexibility and a reduction in triglyceride levels, a type of fat in the bloodstream that, at elevated levels, is associated with increased cardiovascular risk. Since your brain depends entirely on a steady, adequate supply of oxygen-rich blood to function properly, and since cardiovascular health and brain health are increasingly understood to be closely interconnected rather than separate systems, the cardiovascular benefits associated with regular omega-3 intake from salmon translate meaningfully into supporting healthy blood flow to the brain itself, an increasingly recognized factor in maintaining cognitive function as you age. The fourth thing that happens involves mood regulation, an area where omega-3 fatty acids have accumulated a genuinely substantial body of supporting research. Multiple studies have found associations between higher omega-3 intake or higher blood levels of omega-3 fatty acids and reduced rates of depression and improved mood stability, particularly relevant after 50, a stage of life that can involve significant transitions, including retirement, changes in family dynamics, or the loss of loved ones, all of which can meaningfully affect mood and mental health. The proposed mechanisms include omega-3's role in supporting healthy neurotransmitter function, the chemical messengers responsible for mood regulation within the brain, alongside the anti-inflammatory effects already discussed, since inflammation has also been increasingly linked to mood disorders in ongoing research. While salmon consumption alone is not a substitute for professional mental health support when needed, this represents a genuine, evidence-supported connection between diet and mood worth understanding as part of a broader approach to emotional well-being after 50. Now let's talk about the sixth thing that happens, and this one involves the long-term risk for more significant cognitive decline, including dementia and Alzheimer's disease specifically. Several large observational studies following adults over extended periods have found that those who regularly consume fatty fish tend to show somewhat lower rates of cognitive decline and dementia diagnosis compared to those who rarely eat fish, even after accounting for other relevant factors like overall diet quality, exercise habits, and education level. It's worth being honest and clear that this type of observational research shows an association rather than definitive proof of direct cause and effect, since people who regularly eat fish may also tend toward other health-supporting habits that contribute to these outcomes. However, combined with the clear, well-understood biological mechanisms already discussed, DHA's structural role in brain cell membranes, omega-3's anti-inflammatory effects, and support for healthy blood flow, this observational research provides a reasonably compelling, biologically consistent picture suggesting that regular salmon consumption genuinely contributes to long-term brain health, rather than the association being purely coincidental. Now let's talk about why twice a week specifically, since this particular frequency comes up repeatedly in the research on fish consumption and health outcomes, including brain-related outcomes. Many major health organizations and dietary guidelines specifically recommend 2 servings of fatty fish per week as a target associated with meaningful cardiovascular and, increasingly, cognitive benefit, based on the accumulated body of research examining various intake frequencies and their associated outcomes. Eating salmon significantly less often than this, such as once a month or only occasionally, tends to be associated with a less pronounced benefit in most research, since the body's blood levels of omega-3 fatty acids tend to reflect a fairly consistent, ongoing dietary pattern rather than responding meaningfully to occasional, infrequent consumption. Twice weekly appears to represent a genuinely achievable frequency for most people that still provides a meaningful, consistent omega-3 intake, without requiring daily fish consumption, which many people would find considerably less practical or appealing to maintain over the long term. Now, before we go further, let's debunk a few common myths about salmon and fish consumption specifically. For years, many people believed that fish oil supplements provide an entirely equivalent benefit to eating whole salmon, making the actual food itself somewhat unnecessary if a supplement is already part of the routine. Some believed that any type of fish provides essentially the same omega-3 benefit, without meaningful variation between different species. Some believed that how the salmon is prepared doesn't significantly affect its nutritional benefit, as long as salmon is technically what's being eaten. And some believed that the brain benefits of salmon consumption would be immediately noticeable, similar to a quick energy boost, rather than accumulating gradually over a longer period. But when we look at the actual research and mechanisms involved, the picture becomes considerably more nuanced. The real questions are not simply, am I eating fish in general or taking some kind of supplement? The better questions are, is this specific fish genuinely rich in the particular omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA, associated with these brain benefits? Am I preparing it in a way that preserves rather than destroys these delicate fats? And am I maintaining this pattern consistently over months and years, rather than expecting a single meal or a short period of consumption to produce a noticeable, immediate effect? Whole food sources of omega-3s, including salmon specifically, also provide additional beneficial compounds beyond just DHA and EPA, including selenium, vitamin D, and high-quality protein, all working together in ways that isolated supplements don't necessarily replicate as effectively. Now let's build a simple, practical approach to incorporating salmon twice a week into your routine specifically to support brain health after 50. First, aim for roughly 3 to 4 ounces per serving twice weekly, which aligns with the frequency most consistently associated with meaningful benefit in the research discussed today. Second, favor gentler cooking methods, such as baking, poaching, or gentle pan-searing, over methods involving very high heat or extended cooking times, since the delicate omega omega-3 fatty acids in salmon can degrade somewhat when exposed to excessive heat for prolonged periods. Third, consider wild-caught salmon when accessible and reasonably within your budget, since research suggests wild salmon generally contains a somewhat higher concentration of omega-3 fatty acids compared to farmed salmon, though farmed salmon still provides a meaningful source and remains a genuinely beneficial choice if wild-caught options aren't consistently accessible or affordable for your situation. Fourth, if fresh salmon feels impractical for twice-weekly cooking, frozen salmon fillets retain their omega-3 content well and offer a more convenient, often more affordable, and equally nutritious alternative. Fifth, pair your salmon with other brain-supporting foods within the same meal, such as leafy greens rich in antioxidants or berries, creating a more comprehensively brain-supportive meal rather than relying on salmon in isolation. Let's talk a bit more about the specific concern many people have around mercury content in fish, since this is a legitimate consideration worth addressing directly rather than dismissing. Different fish species contain varying levels of mercury, generally correlating with their position in the food chain, since mercury tends to accumulate more significantly in larger, longer-living predatory fish. Salmon, fortunately, sits relatively low on this mercury concern spectrum compared to fish like swordfish, shark, or king mackerel, meaning twice-weekly salmon consumption is generally considered well within a safe range for most adults according to guidance from major health organizations. This is actually one of the specific reasons salmon is so frequently recommended over some other fish options when the goal is regular, ongoing consumption for the associated health benefits, since it offers a favorable balance of high omega-3 content alongside relatively low mercury concern. Let's talk about a specific compound in salmon that often gets overlooked in favor of the more widely discussed omega-3 fatty acids, a naturally occurring antioxidant pigment called astaxanthin, responsible for salmon's distinctive pink-orange color. Astaxanthin has demonstrated a notable ability to cross what's called the blood-brain barrier, a selective, protective boundary that prevents many substances circulating in your bloodstream from entering brain tissue directly, meaning astaxanthin can actually reach and exert its antioxidant effects directly within brain tissue itself, unlike many other antioxidant compounds that remain largely confined to the bloodstream. Antioxidants play an important role in neutralizing unstable molecules called free radicals, which can accumulate with age and contribute to cellular damage throughout the body, including within brain cells specifically. Some preliminary research suggests astaxanthin may offer additional protective benefit for brain health, working alongside the omega-3 fatty acids already discussed, through this antioxidant mechanism specifically targeting oxidative stress within brain tissue. While this area of research remains somewhat less extensive than the well-established omega-3 findings, it represents an additional, genuinely interesting reason salmon in particular, compared to some other protein sources, offers a uniquely relevant nutritional profile for brain health specifically. It's also worth mentioning the B vitamins present in salmon, particularly vitamin B12 and B6, both of which play important, well-established roles in brain function and nervous system health. As discussed in other conversations about nutrition after 60, B12 absorption naturally becomes somewhat less efficient with age, making dietary sources like salmon increasingly valuable as your body's ability to extract this vitamin from food becomes less reliable over time. B12 plays a direct role in maintaining the protective coating around nerve fibers called myelin, essential for efficient signal transmission throughout your nervous system, including within the brain, while B6 is involved in the production of several neurotransmitters directly responsible for mood regulation and cognitive function. This means your twice-weekly salmon habit provides meaningful support across multiple distinct nutritional pathways relevant to brain health simultaneously, rather than offering benefit through the omega-3 fatty acids alone. Let's also briefly address sleep, since this connects meaningfully to brain health in ways that extend beyond the direct mechanisms already discussed. Salmon contains a modest amount of tryptophan, the same amino acid discussed in relation to other foods that support the serotonin and melatonin pathway involved in regulating your sleep-wake cycle. And adequate, quality sleep is itself one of the most well-established factors supporting healthy brain function, since your brain undergoes important maintenance processes during sleep, including the clearance of certain waste products that accumulate during waking hours. While salmon's tryptophan content alone is unlikely to dramatically transform your sleep quality, it represents one additional, complementary way this twice-weekly habit may indirectly support the broader picture of brain health discussed throughout this video, working alongside its more direct omega-3 related mechanisms. Or have tried it multiple times without developing any appreciation for it. Other fatty fish, including mackerel, sardines, herring, and trout, all provide meaningfully similar omega-3 omega-3 profiles and may offer a different taste and texture that some people find more appealing than salmon specifically. For adults who don't enjoy fish in any form, algae-based omega-3 supplements, which provide DHA and EPA derived from the same original source that fish themselves obtain their omega-3 content from, represent a reasonable alternative worth discussing with your doctor. Though whole fish sources generally remain the preferred first choice given the additional beneficial nutrients they provide beyond omega-3 fatty acids alone. Let's also mention canned salmon briefly, since it's often overlooked as a practical, budget-friendly way to reach the twice-weekly target discussed today, particularly for anyone who finds fresh or frozen fillets less convenient or more expensive than they'd like for regular, ongoing use. Canned salmon retains the vast majority of its omega-3 fatty acid content, since the canning process, while it does involve heat, doesn't destroy these fats to the degree that some people assume, and canned salmon that includes the bones, which are soft and easily eaten once canned, offers the additional benefit of a meaningful calcium boost alongside its omega-3 and B vitamin content. This makes canned salmon a genuinely practical option for building simple, quick meals, whether stirred into a salad, mixed with a bit of plain yogurt for a sandwich filling, or added to a simple pasta dish, without requiring the preparation time or expense some people associate with fresh salmon specifically, and are wondering whether starting this habit at 50, 60, or beyond is still worthwhile, given that some of the research involves adults who've maintained this pattern for many years or even decades. While longer-term, consistent consumption generally shows the most pronounced associations with brain health benefits in the research, starting this habit at any point still provides your body with a meaningful, ongoing source of DHA and EPA moving forward, supporting your brain's ongoing structural and functional needs from the point you begin, even if you can't retroactively gain the benefit of decades of prior consumption. It's genuinely never too late to begin supporting your brain health through consistent dietary choices like this one. And what about people managing specific medical situations, such as taking blood-thinning medication, where fish oil's mild blood-thinning properties might be relevant to discuss with a doctor before significantly increasing intake? This is a legitimate, important consideration since omega-3 fatty acids do have a mild, natural blood-thinning effect, which is part of why they support cardiovascular health, but which also means anyone already taking prescribed blood thinners should discuss any significant increase in fish consumption, and particularly any fish oil supplementation, directly with their doctor to ensure this doesn't create an unintended interaction with their existing medication and it's carefully calibrated. Dosing. Let's also briefly touch on vitamin D, another nutrient salmon provides in meaningful amounts that carries its own relevant connection to brain health, particularly since vitamin D deficiency becomes increasingly common after 50 and has been separately associated with cognitive decline and mood concerns in its own body of research. Salmon happens to be one of the relatively few whole food sources that provides a genuinely meaningful amount of naturally occurring vitamin D, meaning your twice-weekly salmon habit offers this additional supporting nutrient alongside the omega-3 fatty acids that have been the primary focus of today's discussion, adding another layer of relevant support for brain health through this same simple dietary habit. Now let's summarize everything in a simple way. But remember, salmon is one supportive piece within a broader pattern of brain-healthy habits, not a standalone solution capable of preventing cognitive decline entirely on its own. It works best alongside regular physical activity, adequate sleep, ongoing mental and social engagement, and management of cardiovascular risk factors like blood pressure and blood sugar, all of which contribute meaningfully to long-term brain health working together, rather than any single food or habit carrying that responsibility in isolation. So this week, consider building salmon into your routine twice, whether it's a simple baked fillet for dinner or salmon added to a salad for lunch. If cooking salmon feels unfamiliar, start with a simple, gentle preparation, a light seasoning of salt, pepper, and lemon, baked at a moderate temperature until just cooked through, and build from there as you become more comfortable incorporating this habit into your regular routine. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you already eat salmon or other fatty fish regularly? And have you noticed any difference in your energy, mood, or mental clarity since making it a consistent habit? Share your experience in the comments. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe to Nutri, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more simple, practical health strategies for adults over 50. And next, watch our video on 3 things you should never do right after waking up after 50, because how you fuel your brain and how you begin each day both play a meaningful role in how sharp, steady, and energized you feel for years to come.